My name is Amara Simone Williams. I'm 32 years old and I'm speaking to you from the office of Williams and Associates, a company that was built from the ground up with my own hands, my own sweat, and my own determination to prove that betrayal doesn't have to define you. If you are listening to this, I request you to like the video and subscribe to the channel and comment where you are listening this from. I want to tell you something that took me years to understand. The people closest to you can sometimes be your greatest threat, and sometimes the person you build your dreams with is the person who will try to steal them from you. But more importantly, I want to tell you this. If you are betrayed, if you are wronged, if someone takes what belongs to you, you have the power to take it back, not through bitterness, but through excellence. So let me start at the beginning, not my beginning, but my family's, because the values they gave me, the integrity, the determination, the refusal to compromise, those are the things that saved me when everything else fell apart. My family was not wealthy, but we were rich in ways that matter. My father, David Williams, was a carpenter. He built homes for people in Chicago, solid, beautiful homes that would stand for decades. He was meticulous, perfectionist, the kind of man who would tear apart an entire wall if something wasn't perfectly lined. Shortcuts, he used to say, are how integrity dies. He made decent money, enough to support our family, enough to save a little, never enough to be comfortable, but every single thing he built was done with pride and care. Neighbors would point at houses in our community and say, "That's a David Williams home," and it meant something. My mother, Michelle Williams, was a social worker. She worked with families in crisis, families at the edge of homelessness, families dealing with addiction, families surviving domestic violence. She worked long hours for modest pay, but she believed her work mattered. Money, she used to say, is not the measure of success. The measure of success is whether you've made someone's life better. I had a younger brother, Isaiah, who was 3 years younger than me. He was quiet, observant, and deeply intelligent, the kind of kid who would sit for hours watching how things worked, taking things apart to understand them and putting them back together in new ways. I was born in 1992, and I grew up watching my parents pour themselves into their work. I watched my father build homes with his hands. I watched my mother sit with women who had nowhere else to go and listen to them with complete attention. I watched my parents make dinner together every evening, both of them tired from the day but both committed to having family time. My parents taught me specific values, and they taught them through example, not through lectures. The first value was integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. Keep your promises. Be honest even when it costs you. Be honest especially when it costs you. I watched my father turn down a lucrative contract because the developer wanted him to use substandard materials. "The house won't last," my father said. "I won't put my name on something that won't last." The second value was hard work. There are no shortcuts to anything that matters. You have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort, you have to be willing to do the work that no one else wants to do. I watched my mother work 14-hour days because a client needed her. I watched her do paperwork late into the night because the case files needed to be perfect. The third value was taking care of people. Money is important, yes, but it's never as important as people. Never compromise people for money. I watched my parents give money to people who needed it. I watched them take in my uncle for 6 months when he had nowhere else to go. I watched them help friends and neighbors without expecting anything in return. The fourth value was knowing your worth. Never accept less than you deserve. Never let anyone tell you that you don't matter. Never let anyone take advantage of you. This was the value I would need the most in the years to come. I was 8 years old when I first understood that money really matters. We were at my school and a girl named Ashley was wearing brand new Jordans. I was wearing regular sneakers that my mother had found on sale. All the kids wanted to be friends with Ashley. No one wanted to be friends with me. That night, I asked, "Why don't we have more money?" My parents looked at each other, and then my mother said, "We have enough. We have food, we have a home, we have each other." "But I want to be cool. I want the things that other kids have." My father knelt down to look me in the eye. "Amara," he said, "money is a tool. It helps you build things, but it's not who you are. Who you are is determined by your character, not by your clothes." I didn't fully understand at the time, but I understood that my parents weren't going to give me what I wanted just because I asked, and I understood that if I wanted more, I was going to have to work for it. So I did. When I turned 16, I decided I was going to make money. I started small. I cleaned houses, I tutored younger kids, I babysat, I worked at the mall during the summer. Every dollar I made, I saved. My parents watched this with pride. "That's the spirit," they said. "Work hard and you can build anything." But when I was 17, I got an idea that would change everything. I noticed that a lot of families in our neighborhood, especially older people, didn't have time to maintain their homes. They needed help cleaning, organizing, doing small repairs. And I realized there was a market for that service. I started a cleaning and home organization business. I named it Williams Home Solutions. I made flyers on my computer. I went door to door in our neighborhood and the adjacent neighborhoods, offering my services at reasonable rates. The response was better than I expected. Within 3 months, I had more clients than I could handle by myself. That's when I met James. James Mitchell was a year ahead of me in school. He was popular, charismatic, the kind of guy that people liked immediately. He had an easy charm and a quick smile. We met at a community event and he asked me what I was doing. When I told him about my cleaning business, he got excited. "I want in," he said. "I'll help you expand. We can take this thing bigger than you're imagining." I was skeptical at first. The business was working fine, but James kept pushing, kept talking about how we could scale it, how we could hire other people, how we could expand to multiple neighborhoods, how we could eventually franchise it. "You're thinking too small," he said. "You should be thinking about building an empire." My parents warned me. "Be careful," my mother said. "Make sure you have everything in writing. Make sure you know exactly what your partnership means." My father was more direct. "Protect yourself," he said. "You've built something valuable. Don't let anyone take advantage of you." But I was 18 years old, and I thought I was invincible. I thought that if someone was charming and enthusiastic, they must be trustworthy. What a mistake that was. I agreed to a partnership with James. We decided to split the company 50-50. James would handle the business side, finding clients, managing finances, coordinating scheduling. I would handle the operations side, training staff, ensuring quality, managing the workers. Except that's not what happened. What happened was that James took over everything. He started going to clients and saying that he was the owner of the company, that I was just an employee working for him. He hired his friends and family members without consulting me. He made business decisions without my input. And the growth he promised never materialized. In fact, the business started to decline. Clients complained about the quality of work. Staff members quit. But James didn't seem concerned. He just wanted to make quick money and move on to the next thing. I was frustrated, but I was also young and naive. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe James knew what he was doing. Maybe I should just trust him. By the time I went to college, I had basically stepped away from the business. I was focusing on school, getting my degree in business administration. James was running the company, or what was left of it. I thought I could just start over. I thought I would build something better. I was wrong. I went to Northwestern University on a partial scholarship. I had to work to cover the rest, but I was determined to get my degree. While I was in college, I realized that I wanted to understand business better. I wanted to learn accounting, marketing, strategic planning. I wanted to know how to build something sustainable, something that would last. I took classes in everything: business law, entrepreneurship, finance, organizational management. I worked hard. I got good grades. But I never forgot about the cleaning business. Sometimes, when I was home during breaks, I would visit the office. The place looked tired. It wasn't growing. It wasn't thriving. "James isn't managing it well," I told my parents. "Did you expect him to?" my father asked. "He showed you who he was, Amara. When someone shows you who they are, believe them." But I was still in college, still trying to finish my degree. I couldn't focus on the business, and I wasn't even sure if I had a right to, since technically I had stepped away. In my senior year of college, I got a call from James. "Hey," he said, "I've been thinking about our business. I think we could really scale it. What if we merged it with a home maintenance company? What if we sold products, cleaning supplies, home organization tools, door to door as part of our service?" I was skeptical. James had a habit of having big ideas that never went anywhere, but he was persistent. "Listen," he said, "I know I haven't done the best job managing things, but I think this could work. I want to partner with you again. I want to build something real this time." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that people could change, that he had learned something from the years we had together. My parents were less optimistic. "No," my mother said firmly, "don't do this. You've learned too much to go backwards." But I was optimistic. I was young. I was about to graduate. I thought I could make it work. So I said yes. After I graduated in 2014, James and I officially relaunched the business. We renamed it Williams and Mitchell Solutions, a combination of both our names. The idea was to offer comprehensive home services, cleaning, maintenance, and home products. We would employ teams of people who would go door to door offering cleaning services and selling home organization products, cleaning supplies, and maintenance tools. I invested my savings into the business. I was working full-time, essentially for free, building systems, training staff, creating processes. I went door to door myself, learning the market, understanding what customers wanted, perfecting the pitch. Those early days were exhausting, but exhilarating. I believed in what we were building. I believed that we could create something real, something that would last. James, on the other hand, seemed more interested in the money than the work. He would talk about expansion before we had gotten the basics right. He would want to hire people without proper training. He would promise things to customers that we couldn't deliver. "Slow down," I would say. "We need to do this right. We need to build a solid foundation." "You're too cautious," he would say. "You're leaving money on the table." But I kept my head down and kept working. I kept training people, I kept going door to door, I kept refining the process. By 2016, the business had started to take off. We had 20 employees. We were operating in 5 neighborhoods across Chicago. We were starting to get recognition. Local press picked up on our story. A young Black woman and man building something from nothing. Our revenue was growing. Our profit margins were improving. Everything was moving in the right direction. By 2017, the business was valued at $100,000. We weren't rich, but we had built something with real value. And then, one day, everything changed. A representative from a large home services company called us. The company, called Home Comfort Solutions, was interested in acquiring our business. They saw our growth trajectory. They liked our model. They wanted to bring us into their portfolio. Their offer was for $200,000, double what we had valued the business at, enough money to change my life, enough money to invest in the next thing, enough money to pay back my parents for all the support they had given me. But I said no. When James told me about the offer from Home Comfort Solutions, I was shocked, but I wasn't tempted. "We're not selling," I said. "What do you mean we're not selling?" James said. "This is $200,000. We built something worth $100,000 and they're offering us double. This is a win." "It's a win if we're done," I said, "but I don't think we're done. I think we can grow this much bigger. I think we can build something worth millions." "You're crazy," James said. "Take the money and move on." "No," I said. "We have control of this company. We built it. We know the market. We know how to scale it. Why would we give that away?" My parents agreed with me. "You're right," my father said. "You built something valuable. Don't let anyone take it from you for less than it's worth." So we turned down the offer. And that was my first mistake. It was a Monday morning in October 2017. I was excited about a new initiative I was planning, expanding into a new neighborhood, hiring 10 new staff, launching a new product line. I went to the office early, at 7 a.m., before anyone else would be there. I wanted to do some work without distractions, review some files, plan out the next quarter. When I got to the building, the doorman, a guy named Marcus who had worked in the building for years, he stopped me. "Miss Williams, I'm not supposed to let you in." I laughed. "What do you mean? This is my office. I own this company." "Not anymore," Marcus said, and his face was sympathetic. "Not as of last week." My stomach dropped.
I went downstairs to the reception desk. The receptionist was Sarah, a young woman we had hired last year who was doing a good job. "Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "why is the doorman saying I can't go upstairs?" Sarah looked uncomfortable. "The building was notified last week that the company has been acquired. Home Comfort Solutions owns the office now." "What?" I said. "I need to talk to James." I called James immediately. He picked up on the second ring. "What the hell is going on?" I said. "Why is the receptionist telling me we've been acquired?" There was a long silence. "Amara," James said finally, "we need to talk." We met at a coffee shop near the office. James looked uncomfortable, like a man who knew he had done something wrong. "I sold the company," he said without preamble. "What do you mean you sold the company? We didn't agree to sell the company. We turned down their offer." "I sold it anyway," James said. "Home Comfort Solutions came back with a better offer, $250,000. They wanted to move fast, and I realized we were never going to agree on this, so I made the decision." "You made the decision?" I repeated slowly. "James, we were partners, 50-50 partners. You don't get to make that decision unilaterally." "Actually," James said, and now his voice changed. It became cold. "I do. Because you're not actually the owner of the company. You're just an employee." I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" I said. "I own the company," James said. "I've always owned the company. You work for me. That's the arrangement. That's how it's always been." "That's a lie," I said. "We had a partnership agreement. We split everything 50-50. "No," James said. "You signed an employment agreement. You work for me." I felt like I was going to be sick. "I need to see the documentation," I said. James smiled, a cruel smile. "I have the original ownership documents. The company is in my name. Always has been." I had no memory of signing anything like that, but I also had to admit that I wasn't careful about legal documents when I was 18. I had trusted him. I had assumed that if we agreed on something, it would be true. What a naive mistake that was. I went to a lawyer. I explained the situation. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in business law, listened carefully and then said, "Show me everything you have, every agreement, every email, every piece of evidence that you were partners in this business." I went through my files. I had emails where James referred to us as partners. I had text messages where he talked about our company. I had financial records showing that I had invested $30,000 of my own money into the business, but I didn't have a written partnership agreement. I had nothing that definitively stated our arrangement. "This is a mess," Patricia said. "His word against yours, basically. But we can still fight this. If he sold the company without your consent, he committed fraud. If he misrepresented the ownership structure, that's also fraud." "How much of the money should I get?" I asked. "If you can prove you're a partner, you should get 50% of the sale price. That would be $125,000. $125,000. It was less than I had invested, less than what I had expected to make, but it was better than nothing. I asked James for my share. He laughed. "You're not getting anything," he said. "I owned the company. You were an employee. You got a salary. That's what you're entitled to." "I invested my own money," I said. "You invested in a job, not in ownership. You should have been more careful." For weeks, I was devastated. I had worked for years. I had built something, and it had been taken from me. I couldn't sleep. I would lie awake at night, replaying conversations with James, wondering how I could have been so naive. wondering how I could have trusted someone so completely and been betrayed so thoroughly. My parents tried to comfort me, but what could they say? They had warned me. I hadn't listened. "What do I do now?" I asked my father one evening, sitting in his workshop where he was building a bookcase for a client. "You remember what I taught you," he said, not looking up from his work. "You remember that integrity matters. You remember that hard work pays off, and you build something better." "How?" I asked. "He stole from me, he lied to me, and he got away with it." "He got away with the money, but he didn't get away with the knowledge. He didn't get away with the experience. He didn't get away with the integrity. Those things are yours, and those things are what will allow you to succeed." I wanted to believe him, but in that moment I was too angry, too hurt, too devastated to believe anything. For 3 months I did nothing. I was paralyzed. I was angry. I was bitter. And then one day I was at my parents' house, and my little brother Isaiah said something that changed my perspective. "You could build it again," Isaiah said. "What?" I said. "The business," Isaiah said. "You know how to do it. You know the market. You know what works. You could build it again, and this time you could build it better. You could build it bigger, and you could put James out of business." I looked at my 15-year-old brother, who had watched his older sister get stolen from, who had watched her suffer for 3 months, and I realized he was right. The best revenge wasn't anger. It wasn't lawsuits that would drag on for years. The best revenge was success. Isaiah became my partner, not because of legal documents or because we signed anything official, but because I trusted him completely and because he wanted to be part of building something real. We sat down and planned out exactly what we would do. We would build a company that was better than Williams and Mitchell Solutions. We would use everything we learned from that experience. We would scale faster. We would hire better people. We would pay them better. We would build a company that people actually wanted to work for. And we would do it while James ran the company he had stolen from me into the ground. We started in 2018 with $40,000 that I had saved and $20,000 that Isaiah had saved. He had been working since he was 14. We named the new company Rising Solutions. The tagline was "Built from the ground up with integrity." The next year was the hardest year of my life. During the day, I worked a full-time job at a nonprofit to pay the bills. At night, I went door to door, building the business. On weekends, Isaiah and I trained our small team of employees. We offered better wages than our competitors. We offered better training. We offered career advancement. We treated our employees like valuable team members, not just cheap labor. Word spread. People wanted to work for us. Customers liked us. By the end of 2018, we had 15 employees. By the end of 2019, we had 40. By the end of 2020, we had 100. And our profit margins were higher than they had ever been with James. Meanwhile, Williams and Mitchell Solutions, the company James had stolen, was struggling. Home Comfort Solutions had acquired it, thinking they were getting a growing business with a good model. Instead, they got a company without the person who actually made it work. By 2020, the company was hemorrhaging money. By 2021, it had gone bankrupt. James called me in early 2021. "Amara," he said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I want to talk about working together again." "No," I said simply. "Just listen," he said. "Your company is successful. My company failed. But together—" "There is no together," I said. "You showed me who you are, James. I believe you now. Goodbye." And I hung up the phone. Rising Solutions was now worth millions. We had expanded to 12 neighborhoods across Chicago. We had opened a second location in Milwaukee. We were planning to expand to 4 more cities. But I couldn't let go of what James had done. So I hired Patricia Chen again, and I told her everything. I told her about the documents James claimed to have. I told her about the partnership agreement we had supposedly signed. I told her about the sale to Home Comfort Solutions. "We can fight this," Patricia said, "but you need to understand, the legal process will take years. It will cost a lot of money, and there's no guarantee you'll win." "I don't care about the money," I said. "I care about the truth." Patricia looked at me carefully. "Okay," she said, "let's do this." We filed a lawsuit against James Mitchell for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and theft. James's response was to claim that he had owned the company all along, that the partnership documents didn't exist, that I had simply been an employee. So we subpoenaed his records, and that's when everything came out. James's own documents showed that he had forged the ownership paperwork. The original documents we found showed that he had created false employment agreements after the fact, backdating them to look like I had signed them when the company was first founded. Furthermore, when he sold the company to Home Comfort Solutions, he had forged my signature on the sale documents. He had represented to Home Comfort Solutions that he was the sole owner, when in fact I was a 50-50 partner. Home Comfort Solutions, realizing they had been defrauded, joined our lawsuit against James. The evidence was overwhelming. The trial took place in 2023, almost 6 years after James had sold the company. I testified about the founding of the business, about our partnership agreement, which we found in old emails where James had referenced it, about my contributions to the company's success. Isaiah testified about watching his sister be betrayed, about working with her to rebuild. Patricia presented financial records showing that I had personally invested in the business, had worked full-time building its systems, and had been the driving force behind its growth. James's lawyer tried to argue that I was just an employee, but his own forged documents worked against him. The jury could see that he had fabricated evidence, that he had lied, that he had committed fraud. The verdict was unanimous. James was found liable for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and theft. The judge ordered him to pay me the full amount he had received from the sale of the company, minus what had been paid to Home Comfort Solutions to settle their claim. That came to approximately $85,000. But more importantly, the judge ordered that Rising Solutions and the original Williams and Mitchell Solutions be merged, with Rising Solutions becoming the primary entity and me holding 100% ownership. "This company was built on your work," the judge said to me, "and it should belong to you." After the trial, Home Comfort Solutions agreed to merge Williams and Mitchell Solutions with Rising Solutions. The combined company became Williams and Associates, a name I chose to honor both my father's legacy and my own journey. With the merger came $2.3 million in additional valuation, plus the existing customers, systems, and reputation of Williams and Mitchell Solutions. Suddenly, I was the owner of a company valued at nearly $5 million. I was 30 years old, and I owned a multi-million-dollar company. I sat in the office of Williams and Associates, the office where I had been told I couldn't enter because I didn't own the company, and I thought about the journey. I thought about being 8 years old and wanting Jordans. I thought about being 18 and trusting James Mitchell with my life's work. I thought about the 3 months I was paralyzed by betrayal and anger. I thought about the decision to build again, to build better, to refuse to let someone else's actions define my future. I thought about my father, who had always told me to build with integrity. And I thought about my brother, who had believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. In the years after the merger, Williams and Associates exploded. I hired brilliant people. I paid them well. I gave them equity. I treated them like partners because I understood the value of partnership. Real partnership, not the kind of theft that James had committed. We expanded to 12 cities. We hired 500 employees. We diversified our services. We started a training academy to teach the next generation of entrepreneurs how to build businesses with integrity. By 2028, Williams and Associates was valued at $45 million. I had offices in major cities across the country. I was regularly featured in business magazines. I was invited to speak at universities and conferences. But none of that was what mattered to me. What mattered was that I had proven something to myself, that integrity works, that hard work pays off, that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning of a bigger one. If you're listening to this story, I want you to understand something that it took me years to learn. The people who betray you are not the architects of your future. You are. James Mitchell stole $200,000 from me. He stole a company I had built. He stole years of my life and energy. But he couldn't steal the knowledge I had gained. He couldn't steal my determination. He couldn't steal my integrity. And those are the things that ultimately made the difference. I see so many people who have been betrayed, who have been stolen from, who have been wronged, and I see them give up. I see them become bitter. I see them spend years angry at the person who wronged them. But that's choosing to let the betrayal define your life. Instead, I chose something different. I chose to let the betrayal motivate me. I chose to build better. I chose to succeed not to hurt the person who wronged me, but to honor the people who believed in me. Throughout this entire experience, I held on to the values my parents taught me. Integrity. I never compromised my values, even when it would have been easier. I never did to James what he did to me. I never cut corners. I never lied. I built my company on a foundation of honesty.
Hard work. I worked harder after the betrayal than I ever had before. I worked nights and weekends. I gave everything I had to building something real. Taking care of people. I built Williams and Associates to take care of my employees and my customers. I paid fair wages. I offered benefits. I created a workplace where people actually wanted to work. Knowing your worth. I never accepted less than I deserved. I fought for what was mine. But I also did it with integrity, through the legal system, not through revenge or bitterness. It's 2031 now, and my life looks very different from what I imagined when I was a young entrepreneur trying to impress people with Jordans. Williams and Associates is now worth over $100 million. We employ 2,000 people across the country. We're planning to go public in the next 2 years. But more importantly, I've created a foundation called Built with Integrity, which provides funding and mentorship to young entrepreneurs, especially young Black entrepreneurs who are building businesses from the ground up. The foundation has helped launch over 200 businesses. We've invested in over $50 million in total capital. We've mentored thousands of entrepreneurs who believed in building with integrity. My brother Isaiah is now the COO of Williams and Associates. He's brilliant at what he does, and I trust him completely. We own the company together, not because of a legal agreement, but because we built it together with honesty and mutual respect. My parents still live in the same house we grew up in. My father still builds beautiful homes. My mother still works as a social worker. They've never asked me for money, but I've made sure they never have to worry about money again. James Mitchell is still out there. I heard that he's working for Home Comfort Solutions now in a low-level position. He tried to contact me a few years ago, apologizing, asking if we could reconcile. I didn't respond. He showed me who he was, and I believed him. I'm standing now in the main office of Williams and Associates, looking out over the city of Chicago. I'm thinking about the girl who wanted Jordans. I'm thinking about the young woman who trusted the wrong person. I'm thinking about the woman who chose to rebuild instead of give up. I'm thinking about my parents, who taught me that integrity is worth more than money. I'm thinking about my brother, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I'm thinking about all the young entrepreneurs who are building their own companies, making their own mistakes, learning their own lessons. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Your success is not determined by the people who try to hold you back. Your success is determined by your refusal to be held back. You can be betrayed.
You can be stolen from. You can be lied to. You can have your dreams taken from you. But no one can take away your ability to dream again. No one can take away your determination. No one can take away your integrity. And if you hold on to those things, if you build with those things, you will succeed. Not in spite of the betrayal, but because of what you learned from it. I'm 38 years old now, and I own a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I employ thousands of people. I've changed the landscape of the home services industry. And it all started with a girl who went door to door selling cleaning services. That girl was betrayed, but she rose again, stronger, smarter, more determined. And so can you. These are words my father spoke to me the night before my trial against James Mitchell. Amara, I've spent my whole life building homes. I've built them with my own hands, and I've made sure every single one was built right. Not because the builder was looking at me, but because I knew that someday someone would live in that home. Someone would raise their family in that home, and I wanted them to be safe. Your mother has spent her life helping people. She doesn't do it for money, even though money would help. She does it because she believes in people. She believes that everyone deserves care and dignity. And I want you to know this. I've always been proud of you, even when you were betrayed, even when you made mistakes, even when you were angry and hurt, because I watched you choose to rebuild instead of tear down. I watched you choose to build with integrity instead of taking shortcuts. I watched you choose to help people instead of only helping yourself. That's what it means to be successful. Not the money, not the company. The choices you make, the character you build, the integrity you hold on to even when it costs you. Go into that courtroom tomorrow and don't fight for revenge. Fight for truth. Fight for justice. Fight for the principle that says integrity matters. That's all that matters. And if you do that, you've already won. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I always will be. This story is about many things. It's about the vulnerability of youth. It's about the cost of betrayal. It's about the power of persistence. But most importantly, it's about the choice you make after you've been wronged. James Mitchell stole my company. He lied about ownership. He forged documents. He got away with the money for a while, but I got away with something he could never have: integrity, knowledge, the respect of everyone around me, the love of my family, the trust of my employees and customers. And in the end, I built something bigger and better than what he took from me. That's the real victory. Not the money, not the $1 million company, but the knowledge that I built it with integrity, that I built it the right way, that it will last. The circle was incomplete, but I completed it, stronger than before, better than before, with the full knowledge of exactly what I was building and why. The rise from ashes is complete, and the view from the top is beautiful.